Hiya guys, it's Marky Boy, and there is no doubt that Mario is my favourite video game franchise of all time. But in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Mario games that totally failed. By the way, this list is entirely my opinion. Am I correct in ranking these? No, of course I'm not. Feel free to let me know what your worst Mario games are in the comments down below. Before we get started, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to see more top 10s from me. Without further ado, here are my personal top 10 worst Mario games. Let the countdown commence. Now what I like about this game is that this marks the debut of our beloved Mario voice actor Charles Martinet, but that's besides the point, okay? Mario's game gallery sounds like it would be a magnificent game, until you boot it up. You may think that this is a whole collection of some of the past Mario games or a bunch of minigames mashed together, but then you realise the whole game is revolved around playing casino-themed games such as checkers, dominoes, go fish, yacht. And then you've got backgammon, and I apologise to all those backgammon fans out there, but to this day, I cannot even get my head around how it works. And once you've played the 5 games, then that's it. No hard mode, no nothing. That's the whole game. In all honesty, I think Nintendo was trying to give Mario a bit of a new twist with a few sports games of the mind as opposed to the physical activity games we're used to seeing, but I don't think that idea panned out too well. Then the rest of the game involves you pulling down tabs. I mean, who would call that fun, for goodness sake? On the positive side, these games have been improved greatly from their traditional imports, hence why it's ranked high on my list, but it still feels wrong to see Mario go through any of these casino games. And why just Mario? Why not Luigi, or Wario, or Peach, or someone else remotely interesting? But don't leave yet, wait till you see the rest of this list. Then comes a rather obscure GBA title that goes by the name Mario Pinball Land. Before we get to the downsides, I need to point out that the storyline is quite hilarious, as Mario being mashed into a neat pinball was something I found rather amusing upon first playing this. And the graphics are looking brilliant too, which is why it's so high on my list. But let's get into what makes the game awful. After being launched, you literally feel helpless being bounced around everywhere, and if you fall off the screen, you just lose a life. Anyways, after a lot of trial and error trying to get to the canon of the hub world, you can then choose what area Mario should travel to. So you've got the usual grass, desert, snow, and fortress. The main idea of the game is to save Princess Peach by collecting as many power stars as possible to open up new areas and defeat the bosses up in them. It is basically a calamity since you barely have a clue as to where Mario's gonna go half the time. The enemies will respawn again if you spend too long trying to defeat them, and the doors close up again if you open every door in that area for no apparent reason. The frustration definitely kicks in when you're trying to make progress but then fall back down. You need to climb all the way back up again to get to the area you were in if you fail to navigate that room. But then you'll just go wasting even more of your time just trying to trigger the doors, get past the enemies, and get back. Although I praise it for being a well-designed GBA game in terms of the graphics, the helplessness of being bounced around really ruins the game. Now we have a game that is apparently Nintendo's direct sequel to the original Super Mario Bros., and that is of course Super Mario Bros. 2. No, I'm not talking about that Doki Doki Panic reskin, I'm talking about the Lost Levels. This was released nowhere else except Japan, as the people considered the stages too difficult for North American and European players. And trust me, when I say the game is absolutely atrocious. You see almost no improvements from the original game, and where you see Nintendo try to improve it, it just turns out to be a chore to deal with. Super Mario Bros. Was probably easy enough back in the day, so they went completely berserk and sent the Lost Levels difficulty straight through the roof. There are backward warp zones, blind leaps of faith, wild gusts of wind, invisible block paths, cryptic maze stages to waste your time, and a mushroom that shrinks or kills you. Every level was created in a ruthless manner, which threw me off balance a lot. Luigi's abilities are different to Mario since he can jump higher, but then again his slipperiness makes him a drawback from this game. There are a few hidden worlds here and there, and this includes World 9, but to get there, you need to play through the whole game without using any warp zones. There are also worlds A through D, but you need to beat the game 8 times to get there, which is an insane task. Not gonna lie, I feel pretty lost half the time I'm playing this. You probably expected Virtual Boy games to pop up somewhere within the list. One of them is Mario Clash, which is basically Mario Brothers but played in a 3D perspective. Basically, the whole game centers around Mario climbing up this high stone tower and using Koopa shells to hold up enemies and kill them, advancing towards the next level. And that's it really, nothing beyond that. There is a bonus chance minigame that involves you trying to collect as many coins as possible, but that's just a small price to pay for a mostly terrible game. Terrible pun. Anyways, the whole game can get kind of repetitive after going through a lot of it, and there's very little to do in this game. There are no other rewards in this game apart from point bonuses, which makes me feel like this should have been cast as an arcade game rather than on the Virtual Boy. The controls are not very fluent either, and the depth perception from throwing things afar can be rather awkward to get your head around at first. To make matters worse, there is no save function, so switch off the console and boom, your high scores are erased. I don't see the point of having a high score leaderboard when the game does not have a save feature at all. Combining that with the ugly red and black colours and you've got a failed Mario title. But we're not done with the Virtual Boy yet. Oh no. Adding on to that trend came Mario's Tennis. I highly doubt many people have played this one, including those who are big fans of the Mario Tennis series. Like, I only came across this game last year. Nobody bought a Virtual Boy 2 unless you're a hardcore Nintendo collector. In this game, you're given the option of playing in either singles or doubles mode. You can play against the computer or you can play in a tournament mode. The problem is there isn't anything else within this game and no unlockables. There is Donkey Kong Jr., but that's the only thing I like about this game. Nothing more. The gameplay in general is just way too limiting, since the only shots you can perform are top spins and lobs and you just move around the court. The depth perception of the ball can get rather clunky to settle down for, and moving around just doesn't feel right on a D-pad. It's no wonder I can only win so many matches because of that feature. Since there are no progression points here, I find it is almost not worth wasting my time playing a second of this game. Like Mario Clash, the red and black palette makes the game really ugly looking too. Upon realizing this was how Mario Tennis game started itself off, I felt that was really too bad. Now this is where the games start to get really stupid. I cannot believe I nearly fell asleep out of boredom whilst playing this, but we are through to Mario's early years. This is technically 3 games, but they all have the same concept and idea, okay? So the games are fun with letters, fun with numbers, and preschool fun. I know this game was meant for little kids and all, but I know for a fact that this game would give me no fun or learning, even if I travelled back in time and played this as a 5-year-old. The concept across the 3 titles is that you wake up poor sleeping Luigi and then clicking on the object he tells you to, and there you go. You have got one lazy masterpiece with no challenge, no meaning at all. The rest of the game sees you interacting with various objects such as counting to 10, but then it drones on for far too long. It's not even worth sitting through. Furthermore, that child's voice I keep hearing whilst trying to record footage for this had really started to mess up my head afterwards, and it becomes really bothersome after some time of hearing that.
You found nap that ends with P.
And like I said earlier, it becomes a painfully slow process playing all these games for some time, and almost nothing can be picked up from this. The fact that these games would teach you anything at all just feels like one rotten joke. Coming up next, we've got Mario is Missing, and where do I even begin with this one? I guess I'll start by saying that this is the NES version of the game since it has the most downsides to it. But I should really start with the plot, which is honestly quite idiotic. So Bowser comes up with this evil scheme to use hairdryers to melt Antarctica and flood the Earth. He summons his minions to scour the Earth and search for landmarks that he can sell for the cash and buy the hairdryers from there. He also steals Mario in the process to prevent him from doing anything else, so Luigi is on his own to save his red bro. But to me, it makes zero sense that Bowser is using hairdryers to melt Antarctica. Can you imagine how long that is going to take when he could have, I don't know, made a machine? By then, Luigi would have probably saved Mario by now. But if you thought that plot was awful, wait till you get into the game itself. The game may sound promising from the beginning, but then you enter the first pipe and realize what you've let yourself in for. Instead of jumping from level to level, you're now stuck going back back and forth between the cities and stomping on some Koopas to get back the stolen artifacts. And then you need to talk to some random people down the road and answer historical and geographical questions about the landmark you're in. The problem I have with this game is that doing all of that feels boring and almost pointless. The controls for this version are not very responsive either, as it takes a couple of seconds to start responding again once you go through to a new area. Worst of all, the education in this game is also misleading, as a lot of the facts are actually wrong, which proves to me they made no effort to make this game educational. Furthermore, there are also no penalties at all, making it completely impossible to get a game over. Like, Luigi is immune to the Koopas and the bosses, for crying out loud. What? Honestly, my point is that nothing appeals to me at all within this game, and I'm almost certain I can say the same things with the other ports too. I have no clue whose idea it was to port many of the best loved games onto the Atari, but the games ported on there were nothing short of terrible, and Mario Brothers for the Atari 2600 is no exception. The game is basically a copy of Mario Brothers, but has been ruined from being extremely downgraded with poor graphics, clunky movement, and simple gameplay. And there are no extra bonuses in this game, making the test your skill phases completely pointless. The controls are also not very fluent in any way whatsoever. Like, you need to get some momentum before jumping, or you will just jump straight up. Whilst playing this to record footage, I always kept getting myself stuck underneath the platforms and getting caught by the fire. I must also admit that the walking causes a disturbance for me, as the bothering scratching sound when Mario walks gives me an absolute headache. I'll just go back to the NES and GBA ports of the game, because overall this is not a very fun game to play, especially if you're easily irritated. Trust me. This is probably the most deceptive game that I have played to date within the Mario franchise, and this is of course Mario's Time Machine. Essentially, the storyline focuses on Bowser travelling through time and stealing ancient and historical artifacts, creating a museum inside of his castle. So Mario sets out to stop Bowser from doing this. At first I was really excited to travel back through time, but then I took it all back 10 seconds later. Firstly, you need to grab one of these artifacts, which I never realised I had to do at first. After this, you need to configure the date, location, and put it in either AD or BC, then travel to the correct time from where the object was stolen. I have to know the date and place where Isaac Newton discovered gravity, the date and place where Beethoven composed his music, and then the date and place where the Joan of Arc's shield was stolen. What? How am I supposed to know this? I didn't study this in my history classes. In fact, I don't think I've ever progressed through the game without looking up these dates. Thank goodness for Google. Then you are forced to go through a tedious minigame where you surf across the water and grab mushrooms along the way, then go through the whirlpool and travel to the time period. On my first time playing this, I was stuck for who knows how long, endlessly surfing on the water. Like, I didn't know you had to collect all of these mushrooms to gain access to the time period, and the time period has to be correct. If you type in the wrong time period and go through the whirlpool, you'll be going around in circles back to the museum. After struggling through all of that, the torture does not stop. In true Mario is Missing fashion, you're forced to, once again, go running between the cities, talking to random people and filling out blank spaces. Like, look at this! Think about how much jargon I need to fill out to make even an inch of progress. And then to top it off, most of these facts you need to fill out are complete lies. And this is an educational game too. Playing this was probably the biggest bore I have ever experienced in my life. The gameplay is just way too slow to compensate that I can't even bear to go back to this game again. Before we get to number 1, let's cover a few honourable mentions. Honourable Mention 1, Mario Party The Top 100. There is a grand total of 1 board in this game, and it's probably the most cheap bog standard board I have ever seen. We've got a great selection of minigames though, but some of the minigames were not that great, as Nintendo just couldn't be bothered to ask the public about the minigames they would like to see. Honourable Mention 2, Paper Mario Sticker Star. Playing this for the first time was really good and I enjoyed it as a 10-year-old, but looking back at it now, I seem to dislike it. It's probably because I've gone through the older Paper Mario games and caught up more, but I've realised the combat used here was completely totaled. Honourable Mention 3, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. This was definitely going to be on this list, but due to the large amount of picks I had in mind, it has to settle in for an honourable mention. The courts are just way too generic, and the only change is you grow in size, which honestly feels quite overrated right now. The Wii U really started to prove its downfall from this point. Honourable Mention 4, Super Mario Maker for the Nintendo 3DS. Sure, you can still make levels and all that, and there's even a mode where you collect medals from playing levels that Nintendo has made, but removing the online functionality, including sharing your levels, pretty much removed all the novelty within the game. Now that's out of the way, here is number 1. You probably saw this coming onto the list as being number 1, but the worst Mario game in my opinion is Hotel Mario. I just do not understand why people even like this game at all. I suppose we've got a bunch of internet memes out of them.
I hope she made lots of spaghetti.
But when you take the real game into perspective, it's just a complete disaster. Essentially, the whole game involves you running up and down the floors, dodging, killing enemies, and then closing all doors before time runs out. That's it, that's all you do in the game. No further strategy, challenge, or anything. Even if it would be a challenge, that aspect is taken way too far, since the enemies are everywhere just trying to ruin your progress, and if they open all the doors in that area, you just lose. There is just no end to this infuriation, and this probably led to a few broken CDI consoles or two. Furthermore, it is way too easy to die in this game, since there are poor controls and enemies can easily deceive you in the process, wasting even more of your precious time. The music plays a good role in interfering with your gameplay, because it just repeats itself over and over until it gets stuck in your head for the next few days. And I haven't even brought up the cutscenes yet. Just look at them! The animations are just horrible. They look like they've been drawn out on Microsoft Paint and then poorly animated in a bizarre manner. Not to mention the audio quality is so distorted, which probably caused a lot of damaged ears to the extent where everything seems to be rushed in the game's development and the final outcome. So to summarize, you've got a basic concept, frustrating gameplay, poorly animated cutscenes, and poor controls. All this added up and you have got the worst Mario game known to mankind. But hey, as I said earlier, this list is entirely my opinion, and there is no doubt that I have made a few mistakes ranking these. Do you or do you not agree with my list? What is your worst Mario game? Feel free to let me know in the comments section down below. I've been Marky Boy, and this has been my top 10 worst Mario games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye! Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. Like and subscribe to see more, and I have some videos on screen to check out too. Remember, I have some social media networks in the description down below. Have a great day until the next video. Bye bye!